As someone who values creative ability, I don't want to embrace AI too quickly, but I also don't want to be pig-headed about it and not use it whatsoever because of some false belief. I believe creativity is a little bit like a muscle. If you don't use it, it's not going to grow. And I personally, as a creative, don't want to lose that ability to be creative. I want it to grow. I want to be the most creative person I can. And by using AI, I fear that I'm going to lose that muscle. And so instead of fretting about it, instead of thinking too much one way or thinking too much the other, trying to fully embrace it or trying to completely avoid it, I decided, how about I think through a couple questions and create kind of a policy that I would use as a creative before I approach anything to do with AI. I don't think of this policy as like a wall. It's not something that you have to follow this exact thing and you have to do it this exact way every single time. I think of it a lot like a compass. A compass will take you through an unfamiliar territory. A compass works in your backyard, and a compass works when you're out in the raging seas in a boat and you don't know where you're supposed to be going. A compass helps in a situation you may not foresee yourself being in. A wall is set around a situation that you know is going to happen. And so for me, this policy I created for myself so that before I use any AI, no matter what it looks like or what it may look like in the future, I think I can follow these guidelines and still develop my creative muscle while without being too pig-headed about it. So I read this book recently, and this is one that kind of got me thinking. It was a very well-researched book by a general, and his take on AI and all this research, and it was written in 2025, so about as recent as you can get. And in this book, there was a quote about creativity, specifically in AI, and it said, AI won't replace creatives, but creatives who don't use AI will be replaced. Now, I don't wholeheartedly agree with that quote, but it did get me thinking. It did make me think through, okay, how as a creative can I use AI in a smart way? And how can I use it in a way that doesn't lose a creative muscle? So if you're a non-creative, you may enjoy this video anyway, but I am thinking specifically for people who want to be creative for their job or who want to be creative in their hobbies. And for some people, it's more important than others. So if that's something you're interested in, then take a look at some of these questions and how I'm going to be thinking about AI in the future. First off, it's really made me think through what I want to create. Because there's a lot of things I can do. I could write a bunch of blog articles, I could create a film, I could create YouTube videos, and it's made me think through what I want to create. Because I don't want to create something that AI can just do really quickly. There's some things that I might get enjoyment out of as a hobby, and I may want to do that, but it's made me realize I want to create something that's timeless. I want to create something that matters, and I want to create something that only I can create. If AI can just do it easily and write the little blog article or write a script for a YouTube channel that's not adding any value in any way, then that's not something that I want to get involved with. I want to do something that only I can do. I want to use my time wisely. So it's made me think through that first. It's also made me think a lot about imperfections. Because when you create something, for example, I've been working on an animated pilot, and it is very, very rough. There's imperfections everywhere. Characters clip through things, there's weird camera moves, the framing isn't always right, and yet, in those imperfections is where you can see human artistry. When there's mistakes, when there's happy accidents and you're filming and you call action and some happy accident happens, or when you're writing and you just get bored and write something that ends up being kind of interesting as a little mistake, it just makes it more real. The real world is full of imperfections. And it's made me realize that imperfections actually have a lot of value. And yeah, you can have too many imperfections, and imperfections are not ideal, but imperfections are what make it human. And AI has been created to not have imperfections. When you talk to it, there's no friction in how you talk to it. It just agrees with everything you say, or it challenges you in a really polite way or something, but it's not real life. And you're not learning to grow as a human. And the less friction you have, the less you grow. So it's made me appreciate imperfection in the creative process a whole lot more. The goal isn't to remove friction. The goal is to embrace it and to use it to challenge you and grow your muscle so that you can overcome it in the future. And if you just remove friction, then you're losing the ability to overcome it when it comes up in real life. And if you lose that ability in the writing process, because you're just using ChatGPT in so many different ways, then when you get on set, you're not going to be thinking as creatively. So I believe the creative muscle is a gift by God, and it's going to be designed. So I want to steward that gift really, really well. So here's a couple of variety of questions I'm going to ask before I jump in and use anything AI related. I'm not a very structured person, have enough structure to get along, so this is really no particular order. But these are a couple questions that I'll ask, as well as a couple of my thoughts mixed in on why I'm asking them. So the first one is just thinking through literally, have I thought about why I'm using AI, or did I just do it instinctively? Did I just go to ChatGPT and start typing, or did I think about why I'm using it? So I think it's a good starting point. Am I just using it just to use it and I don't even think about it, or am I thinking about the tool that I'm using? Am I thinking about how it's a blessing, or am I thinking about the possible ways it could hurt me in the future? So that's the first one. Second is thinking through the job. Would I want AI to do this particular task or this particular job or this particular goal? Would I want AI to do it, or would I want Christopher Nolan, the film director, to do it? And if it's something like automatic subtitles, I think AI is perfect. If it's brainstorming some ideas, AI might have a good use there, because Christopher Nolan wouldn't create subtitles any differently than AI would create them. So for grunt work, AI has an incredible use. For scheduling stuff, it has a use. For things that are mundane and don't require creativity, AI does have a use. And I think it's amazing for automatic subtitles. That's just the best example I could think of over and over, because it's just amazing. It's awesome. And there's no difference between AI doing that or Christopher Nolan doing it. But when it comes to writing an idea or brainstorming or developing an idea, yeah, I would much rather have Christopher Nolan or James Cameron or Peter Jackson or some really cool film guy, creative, doing that work. But if AI could do it the same, then just let AI do it. But if you would rather have a really famous person working on it and you would see the quality difference, then that might be something that I should do. This gets me thinking a little bit about some people I've talked with who are not really creative people. And that's okay, but they will use AI as a starting point and then adapt it. I think it's an interesting idea, but I think as a creative, my goal is to never have AI start the process. When I'm staring at a blank page, I need to start that process. AI, I think, can develop an idea and help add some tension to it or bring different varieties to it or flesh it out. But if I start with AI, I'm never going to get better than just that. If I try and adapt an AI script, it's never going to get better than the base of what it is. And so for a lot of people, I think they start with that. AI is now their creative starting point, and then they adapt it. I'm not saying it's bad, but for creative, I want to make sure that I'm only adapting something, or I'm only using AI to adapt, not using it to start at the starting point. So that's something that came up as I was thinking through that. The second one is just, what type of tool do I need? If I'm driving around, I really don't want to use a map. I love a GPS. And a GPS, yeah, is making me dumber and I don't have addresses memorized, but I think a GPS is a far superior tool than just a map. Now, there's a time for a map. It's a little quaint, it's a little classic, I don't mind it, but I think it's a far superior tool. Same with a typewriter and a computer. A computer is a far superior tool in my book and for my reasoning, because I can go backwards, I can edit, I can adapt, whereas a typewriter, if you make a mistake, you make a mistake. And if you want to add in a new line here, you got to retype the whole page. And it's cool, it's quaint, it's nice, but it's not the same. And so here, the second question I ask is, what type of tool do I need for this job? Is it a chainsaw or is it an axe? Do I need an axe to chop down the tree and build some muscle and get a good workout in? Or do I want to use a chainsaw and have it go a lot quicker? And there's times where AI is a much far superior tool. For example, during the summer, I was trying to figure out a rooming list for a group of people. They'd already been roomed in several different ways, and everyone had had the same roommate at some point. And now it was like, okay, who is the one or two people that have not roomed yet? How do I divide it up one more week so that people are rooming with somebody that haven't roomed yet with? And AI figured it out. And it was a massive mind juggle watching Grok work through this huge equation and try a bunch of different ways to figure it out. And that was pretty cool. And so if it's something that you need a good tool for, then I'm going to use it for that tool. Now for something creative, specifically, I'm going to try and use my brain, because I want to use that tool and I want to develop that tool. But for other things, it is amazing to have technology, and I don't want to avoid that amazing thing. This question that's coming up next is a very important one, and it's, am I saving time or am I shifting the burden? And I've noticed this a lot in a workplace environment, not necessarily in my own work. It does happen there, but it's most prevalent in a workplace environment where someone will do a job and they'll do something with AI, and for them it's saving time, but really it's just shifting the burden, because now somebody's having to edit it or someone's having to redo it or fact check it, and now they're spending more time fact checking than they are actually using the content. That doesn't happen all the time, but it's something that's worth thinking about. Is it just saving you time, or is it saving everyone time? Or is it burning your trust by sending a bunch of emails that are written with ChatGPT, and now all your coworkers or your clients are reading it and they realize that, yeah, it is well written, but it's written by ChatGPT and it's just obvious. There's em dashes everywhere. There's cute little emojis added in where you typically wouldn't add in emojis. Not that it's wrong, not that it's bad, but it could be burning trust and you're shifting the burden to another problem. And so I also think of AI agents that people are starting to use now. And it seems like it's great, but they're spending more time setting it up and spending more time checking it and making sure it's not doing anything crazy and trying to find a use for it because they're paying for it, than actually doing work. And so work is always going to exist. It has existed since the beginning of time, but somehow we're always just as busy as the previous generation. Just because we don't have to wash our clothes out in the stream and hand wash them, just because we don't have to go mill our own flour and go grow it and then wash it and then cook it and find firewood to cook the thing. Just because we don't have to do those things doesn't mean we're still not busy. We just find other things to get busy with. And so sometimes AI actually seems like it's saving something, but really it's not. It's just shifting the work to another area, and it's making it more of a mental game, and you're using more bandwidth trying to figure out how to solve that problem. So that's something I like to ask, is it may start faster, but is it going to finish at the same amount of time? Because sometimes you start faster with AI, but then it takes longer to finish. Sometimes it just takes a while to start, but then it's finished because you put in the work and you verified it. So that's another question I like to ask. Another one, and this one has probably been the most useful, is how important is this task? I don't mind doing it if it's super easy. But also there's some trivial things that just don't matter. If you're doing a presentation for just a fun activity, it might be worth creating something so that you're building your creative muscle. But sometimes it just doesn't matter. Sometimes for a YouTube title, it is okay to use ChatGPT to get some ideas, because it's not something that matters as much in the long run. Or maybe you just need to generate a block of text for the background of a prop. ChatGPT is great. No one's ever going to read that text. You just need something that's not lorem ipsum, whatever Latin phrase. You just need something written. And so chat can have an incredible use there, and AI has incredible use. So I just like to ask, is this task really important? Or is it just a trivial task that I don't mind using ChatGPT for? With that one, I also want to be careful, because unnecessary creating is a concept in the creative world where you do something that's not necessary, kind of like a hobby. Hobbies aren't necessary, but they give you value and they help train you for something, and you end up using that skill in a neat way. And so sometimes these unnecessary things are actually building you up and growing you and teaching you in some way that you weren't thinking about. So I don't want to be too trivial and just go for it every time that chat's easier. But I do think there are times where it just makes sense. Just use ChatGPT. It is easier. God has gifted you an incredible tool, so why not use it? Another question I have to ask, this may not be one on your policy list if you're creating one, but it's just very simply, am I being too pig-headed? Because there's times where I just am pig-headed because I don't want to use something, and I want to be very adamant that I'm not going to have my phone in my room at night, or I'm not going to do this or do that, or I'm just very pig-headed about a particular way of doing things because I want to be disciplined. And sometimes you just got to say, I'm being too pig-headed. It just makes sense to do it that way. It is okay. And so I think it's okay. It's okay to use it sometimes. So I just need to ask, and that's a check for me, am I being too pig-headed? This next question is one that I find very important, but it is sometimes harder to answer, and it can sometimes be vague. And if you're not a follower of Christ, then you might not ask it. But for me, I like to ask, am I becoming more loving? Because I think that is the metric of every believer in Christ. It's not about if you're learning more knowledge or if you're serving more or whatever. It's just simply, are you becoming more loving? Because Christ was a loving person, and if you're becoming more loving, you're becoming more like Christ. If you're doing something else, then maybe you're not becoming more loving. There's a lot of great metrics, but loving is the most important metric. So if I'm using AI, if I use AI in a creative way, am I becoming more loving? And it can be a harder one to ask. It can sometimes be one that just doesn't have a simple answer. Sometimes it's not easy to tell, am I becoming more loving by using ChatGPT to do this? So I don't ask this question all the time, but it's one that makes me think every once in a while. This next one is pretty similar to a previous one, but it is, what skills do I value as a person? For example, I really don't value doing algebra equations. Knowing that skill just doesn't matter to me. I learned it at one point, I don't value it anymore. Let AI do it. That's okay for me. Now, if you're a math person, maybe you do value that. But I do value doing basic math, doing basic addition and subtraction. So at the end of the month, when I have my budget to add up and all the purchases I made, I like to do it. I like to add it up, and there's times where I will use Gemini to just calculate it really quickly because I just want to. But every once in a while, I like to make sure I'm doing it. About every third month, I like to go through and make sure I still have the skill of just adding up basic math. I don't want to lose that skill. It's a skill I value. Now, I don't value it enough to do it every single time, but I do value that skill, and I want to make sure I keep it going. But there's other times, especially with creativity, where I truly do value the ability to be able to brainstorm, or to be able to come up with this, or to be able to outline really well, or to be able to view a movie from this direction. And it's kind of hard to, vague to explain it from a creative process, but there's things that I creatively value and I want to be able to do. And so I'm going to do them every time, even if it takes a little while, or it's a little bit harder, because I value that skill and I want to have that skill. The last one, and this one's sort of been talked about in the very first question, but it's just very simply, is AI or am I better qualified for this task? There's some things that AI is just better qualified for. And maybe you want to build that muscle, and so by not being qualified, you want to get better at it, and that's okay. But there's some things that AI is just flat out more qualified for. And so it is okay to let AI do something that's better qualified at. I think that's okay. The GPS is better qualified at finding the directions than I am. And so I think it's okay to sometimes use AI in that way. So that's where I'm at. That's kind of my policy checklist as a creative of what am I going to talk about? What am I going to ask before I just use AI? Like I said, I don't want to just use it blindly because I value my creativity and I want to continue to build that muscle. But I also don't want to just be pig-headed about it and never touch it because it can have incredible use. So that's where I'm at. I'm curious, where are you at? Go ahead and answer in the comments, and I'm curious to see where some of you guys are actually at in your use of AI.